Last night, far left extremists, Antifa, rumped about the Pacific Northwest, smashing things up, saying, we don't care who the president is. And one building they smashed up was the DNC headquarters. That's right, Democrat headquarters. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe Biden's America. In Joe Biden's America, we get 4,200 deaths in one day. And what is Joe Biden doing while all this is going down? What is Joe Biden doing as people are rioting, as jobs are being destroyed? Why Joe Biden is watching fireworks, having a good old celebration. How inappropriate. Ugh, going to a party while this country is suffering. Hey, I can do what the media did too, right? Can we all put resist and not my president in our Twitter bios now and start criticizing Joe Biden? No, truth be told, we're all going to criticize Joe Biden anyway, and we should probably just talk about the Antifa stuff and move through this. But the reality is, Joe Biden did go out and party for his inauguration, and I totally get it. He just became president. However, he went into the White House and he signed 17, I believe it's 17 executive orders, some of them very controversial. There's already apparently a lawsuit from Canada over the Keystone Pipeline stuff because that's like breaking a contract with Canadian workers. My point in all this is, talking about what happened with coronavirus is that, to be fair, Joe Biden probably should not have been celebrating with fireworks at night and dancing and song and stuff because they're the ones who campaigned on this corrupt and broken America that needed fixing. They're the ones who claimed that every day the deaths were piling up. It was Trump's fault. Well, I tell you this, they're still going to be saying that. Well, Joe Biden chooses to forego a hard day's work in lieu of a celebration, which again, I get. He became president. Go celebrate. Shouldn't he have sent a message to the American people where he said, there will be time for celebration later. The first thing we have to do is get into the nitty gritty and start figuring out what to do about these problems. Maybe called in something to stop the violent rioting in the Pacific Northwest, which is seemingly going on forever. No, because the reality is Joe Biden is the same as all the rest of them. He's going to get in. He's going to sign the things he wants, and it's going to cause problems for a lot of people. And he doesn't care. He doesn't care about you. That's always been the issue. A lot of people say on the left that Trump didn't care about you either. And I just got to say, I don't agree. Donald Trump cares about people in a different way than you'd expect a normal human being to, but he does care. And what I mean by that is Donald Trump, in my opinion, is narcissistic. I'm not saying that because, look, people hear narcissism and they immediately assume the person's bad. Like what I mean is Donald Trump puts his name in big golden letters on the tops of buildings. Okay, he has a golden toilet, apparently. Yeah, the dude clearly loves himself, but he is desperate for you to love him as well. And from that, Trump cared about what the American people thought. Once he realized he couldn't win in the media, he just kind of gave up and started going after the radical left because he took what he can get. Joe Biden not only is a narcissist and an egotist, but he cares about power more than you. You see, Donald Trump was born, for the most part, wealthy. And from that, he, gets a loan from his dad. He starts a business and then he's done it. He's super rich. He can do whatever he wants. What more do you do? And you got all that money. So he runs for the presidency because Trump wants love from people. I mean, and I mean this seriously. People talked about how his dad didn't treat him well. And so he grew up desperately wanting to get the approval of people. I'm not saying it's a good thing. It's actually quite unhealthy. And there are a lot of problems with the Trump president. Don't get me wrong. I supported him for the reasons you've probably heard me say 1,000,001 times. But I look at Joe Biden as a guy who grew up old Scranton Joe, right? And his whole thing was, I want to come up. And he found a way to come up. And it was through, I'm going to do air quotes here, public service, where somehow the dude's become a millionaire and his family become millionaires and his brother got multi-million-dollar construction contracts in Iraq. Right around the time Joe Biden was sworn in and then started overseeing what was going on in Iraq. So you see how it works. Joe Biden doesn't care about you. He cares about himself and his family and coming up. Donald Trump, it's probably true to a certain degree, but he desperately wants you to love him. So at least you have that. Well, here's what's happening over in good old Portland. I believe it's Portland. The New York Times reports protesters in the Pacific Northwest smashed windows at a Democratic Party headquarters, marched through the streets and burned an American flag on Wednesday in a strident challenge by anti-fascist and racial justice protesters to the new administration of President Biden, whose promised reforms they declared won't save us. Well, bravo. This is Biden's America. You know why? Because Biden could have, on day one, done something about Portland. Now, look, maybe you could argue it's unreasonable, but is he justified in celebrating, playing fireworks, and dancing with everybody while this kind of stuff is going on? You want to criticize Trump for going golfing? Trump criticized Obama for going golfing. So I'll criticize Joe Biden for having a celebration with fireworks instead of sitting down, calling the leaders of these cities and the state and saying, what can we do to stop this? Instead of actually calling New York or any of these other states that are dealing with COVID and saying, let's get a plan together. They say in Portland, Oregon, lines of federal agents in camouflage now working under the Biden administration blanketed streets with tear gas and unleashed volleys of welt-inducing pepper balls as they confronted a crowd that gathered outside an immigration and customs enforcement building near downtown. Some in the crowd later burned a Biden for president flag in the street. Can't say I'm complaining. You know, look, it was a couple months ago where I actually said, I just don't care about this anymore. I don't. They voted for it. The people of Portland, Oregon voted for this. So who am I to judge? Who am I to tell them you're not allowed to vote for what you want? So I won't. Bravo, Antifa. Look, if my community voted to have a giant hot air balloon that the kids could play around in and fly up in the sky and just leave, I'd be like, oh. I mean, you got to intervene at some point, protect people. But what do you do when people choose something? We're a country of individual rights and liberties. I might not agree with putting kids in a hot air balloon and just sending it off, but it's not my family. It's their vote, and there's some serious challenges. It's a big conundrum of libertarianism. You know, where you draw the line, and I'm fairly left libertarian, but also, you know, not too far into the libertarian spectrum, because I'd probably say, hey, you're going to kill those kids. You probably can't do that. And I'd say here, like, hey, yo, these guys are smashing windows, starting fires, and hurting people. You probably can't do that. But at a certain point, I don't live in the Pacific Northwest. I'm not going to tell these people what they can or can't do. If the people in these cities say, we want an administration that will allow widespread violence and vandalism, that will support and defend Antifa, then please. And my only response is, okay. Joe Biden's staffers bailed these people out, the people in Minneapolis. Kamala Harris directly solicited money for a bail fund to bail out rioters. And then 80 million people voted for Joe Biden. Good for them. Are we complaining? I don't know. Don't live in Portland. If you live in Portland, you probably should leave. I know it's not easy. And I'll tell you this right now. I hear from a lot of people saying it can't be done. It's too hard. Dude, I'm sorry, man. I don't want to hear it. I'm not trying to be mean. I lived in Chicago, and with only $200, I just left my apartment, put on a backpack, found a ride share to California, and that was it. I went to San Diego, and then took a bus to LA, and I had no plan, nowhere to go, just a backpack. I had some clothes, I had a computer, and I was like, don't care. I've got to get out of this city. Chicago was a dead zone. It is a cultural desert. And I knew that I was wasting away if I were to stay there. And this was like when I was like, how old was I? 22, I think. And so went on Craigslist, found someone who needed help driving a car, and I said, I'll do it. And I don't know what I will find. I will arrive in this place with I might know some people, but haven't talked to them in a while, have no plan, have no job, and I made it work. So you might be in Portland right now watching these people destroy everything and saying, it's too hard, I can't leave. Look, man, people got in a boat from Europe for 3 months, and a bunch of people died on the boat. And then they landed on the shores of North America with nothing. Now that is hard. So maybe it'll be tough. Maybe it's hard by today's standards, but you got to get out of this place, man. They say another tense protest in Seattle saw dozens of people push their way through the streets with some breaking windows, spray painting anarchist insignia, and chanting not only about ICE, but the many other issues that roiled America's streets last year under Donald Trump. No cops, prisons, borders, presidents, said one banner. While another proclaimed that the conflict over racial justice, policing immigration, and corporate influence in the country was not over, merely because a new president had been inaugurated in D.C. A Democratic administration is not a victory for oppressed people, said a flyer handed out during the demonstrations, during which protesters also smashed windows at a shop often described as the original Starbucks. Whoa, really? During a protest where they smashed the OG Starbucks windows in downtown Seattle? Wow. Now that's crazy. That's the original Starbucks is in what is it? It's in the market. It's in the Pike Place market area. That's pretty serious. The communiques used expletives to condemn Mr. Biden and his stupid crime bill, passed in 1994 and blamed for mass incarcerations in the year since. You know what, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're going to have a great next couple of years. You know, hear me out. I'm optimistic. Maybe it's not all bad that Biden's coming in. Now he's doing a bunch of crazy things. Let me just tell you. It's just, you know, it might accelerate things. And that's not necessarily a good thing, okay? But what I mean when I say it's not all bad is that the right and the left, the Trump supporters and the far leftists might actually come to an agreement on certain issues. Like, yeah, Biden is stupid. His crime bill is bad. And now you've got populist right wingers who hate Biden, think he's crooked and corrupt. They're going to put on Antifa gear and be like, yeah, I don't care what you're protesting. I hate that man. And let me tell you something. You don't have to agree with the leftists' ideology. If they're protesting against something you don't like, you can agree that you are challenging a broken system or something you don't like. If Joe Biden is crooked and corrupt and you don't want him to be president and you hear a group of people who agree with you, it's not about the enemy of my enemy being my friend. I'm not a fan of that. But I think that we as Americans aren't enemies. We disagree. If most of us disagree on crazy things, but we all agree that the current establishment system doesn't serve us and we want to protest that, then I think we should. I wonder if Antifa would actually support, you know, fairly right-wing individuals or whatever, just saying, we don't care, we agree, get Biden out of there. Maybe not, because the right wants someone like Trump in. But if we can all agree to say Biden bad, maybe, you know, we'll actually get some things done where we can actually agree on something. So no surprise here. Hours after the inauguration of Mr. Biden, federal agents in Portland used tear gas and other crowd control munitions to disperse demonstrators who had gathered to protest the harsh arrest and detention practices wielded by the federal immigration authorities under the Trump administration. Oh, what's that? Joe Biden's deploying his Gestapo in the Pacific Northwest to defend Donald Trump's immigration policies? Fascism. Tell me that's not fascism. Say it to my face. Joe Biden's federal agents tear gassed racial justice protesters in defense of Donald Trump's immigration policies. What's that you say? It's fascism? Say it. How many of these resistance Democrats will not? I'll tell you what. These protesters, these leftists, they will say it. Not the Democrats who used them. Many of these resistance Democrats who backed Antifa, I wouldn't be surprised if they turn. Look at this article. Are you surprised how the New York Times is writing about this? The New York Times showing photos and criticizing. Well, I shouldn't say criticizing, but framing against the left. Strange, isn't it? Antifa was useful for the time. And that's what it tends to be. And now that Joe Biden is in, they will be smeared and defamed. And there we go. These poor people, these poor people. You know, I'll tell you what, the QAnon people, I feel bad for them, too. They're really losing it. You go to their forums and it's just like, I won't give up. It's still going to happen. The storm is coming. It's like, bro, Joe Biden is president, dude. Pretty sure there's no storm. Pretty sure there was no storm a long time ago. A lot of people are making a lot of money off claiming Trump was going to pull off some Hail Mary. Like, it's going to happen. Trump's going to arrest everybody. And what was I saying? Look, there's a slim possibility of a triple lightning strike Hail Mary that hits the lottery machine and prints the winning ticket. But Joe Biden's going to be peacefully inaugurated. My basic explanation was it's in the realm of possibility. You know, like if someone said the moon was made of cheese, I'd be like, that's nuts. If someone said Trump can find a way to be president, I'd be like, yeah, okay, get it. But a lot of people kept saying it would happen. Just wait. It's coming. It never happened. But anyway, I'm not here to rag on the Q people because I did a lot the other day in the past few days. I'm here to rag on the left version of the same thing. Well, here over at Twitter, you can see a tweet from the New York Times. Protesters in the Pacific Northwest smashed windows at the DNC. Okay, we get it. Love it. This woman says, yeah, I'm thinking these are Trump supporters that were mad that Biden was sworn in. BLM has nothing to do with this. Oh, you sad woman. I feel so bad. Man, there's a lot more about that's in here where people are just saying, you know, just saying it's Republicans. One woman said it's a trick. It's not really the left. It's the conservatives trying to smear them. Man, the replies are just so sad. I thought these riots were because of Trump. Oh, wait. Yeah. Amazing. Count Dankula tweets, how long before the Biden administration says actually Antifa is not an idea? How long before the Democrats like Nadler come out and say Antifa is a serious problem? Look at this one. They're marching down the street. We don't want Biden. We want revenge for police murders, imperialist wars, and fascist massacres. Well, I don't like police murders. I don't like imperialist wars, and I don't like massacres of any sort. So I agree with you on that one, but I don't agree with revenge. I believe in what's the right word for it? I guess justice. Justice is blind. Justice is not easy. And what we want is rehabilitative. We want to solve problems. We don't create problems. Revenge just makes more and more problems. It's not going to stop anything. Everything they said about Trump, it's coming true under Biden. And I hope you're ready. As Biden stands and watches inauguration fireworks on the balcony, do we have some photos? Look at that. Late at night, posing at the Lincoln Memorial. Oh, I'm so happy that Joe Biden found the time to go and stand at the Lincoln Memorial for photo ops while this country was burning. While the left was smashing up the windows of the original Starbucks, the Pike Place Market. That's serious. Like, that's like going downtown to a big city, you know? And I know it happened all last year. I'm just saying, wow, I'm surprised that happened. Going around to residential neighborhoods like they'd been doing, well, it's harder to secure. And what was Joe Biden doing? He was hanging out with Tom Hanks hosting Celebrating America. They filmed some segment of a return to normalcy. Is that what you call normalcy? Joe Biden. Let me show you something. I mentioned this earlier, 4,200 deaths on Wednesday. Do you think that Joe Biden should have been celebrating and doing photo ops while thousands upon thousands of people were dying? I'd say the answer is no, only because the media said the answer is no over and over again when they criticized Trump. Truth be told, I realize it's kind of absurd to blame Joe Biden for pandemic deaths. We're not gods. We can't control nature. My point is more about the media and the leftist hypocrisy, that every death was Trump's fault. Okay, then by your standard, that's Biden's fault. Now they'll say, yeah, but he was just sworn in. Sure. What's he going to do today? Couldn't Biden have foregone the fireworks and the dancing to do something about this? He could have. He didn't. Okay. He went and did a photo shoot. Remember that narrative? Are we going to play these same games? Look at this. From City Journal. Words of division. Heather McDonald writes, it's an odd way to seek national unity. Call a significant portion of the American public white supremacists, racists, and nativists. Welcome to the Biden presidency. Joe Biden used his inaugural speech to lament the fact that this country is just marred by too much white supremacy and racism and nativism. Nativism. I love that one. That basically means if you believe tax-paying Americans should be the first in line to receive benefits from their taxes, you're a nativist. It's ridiculous. But Joe Biden, first thing he does, literally, as he is being sworn in, is say, basket of deplorables, basically. Some people on the left are saying, it's not true. He didn't call these people. He didn't say that they were racist and nativists. You're lying. Remember when Joe Biden lied and said Trump and the Very Fine People hoax? Come on, we're going to play the same game. Let me show you exactly what he said, though, so you get the real context, because I'm in the business of properly informing you. He said, we can make America once again the leading force for good in the world. I know speaking of unity can sound to some like a foolish fantasy, and other forces that divide us are deep and they are real. But I know they are not new. Our history has been a constant struggle between the American ideal that we are all created equal and the harsh, ugly reality that racism, nativism, fear, and demonization have long torn us apart. The battle is perennial. Victory is never assured. Have long torn us apart. He talked about ending the uncivil war. That's what he said, whatever this conflict we're in. And then he said that our nation has long been torn apart by racism, nativism, fear, and demonization. So yes, it does kind of seem like he is saying a large portion of the people are those things. You can interpret it however you want, but I'll tell you some other stuff. Joe Biden, he gets in, he signs 17 executive orders on the first day, including controversial actions, notably the termination of the Keystone Pipeline. Now, I don't have particularly strong opinions on the Keystone Pipeline. One of the arguments from the Native Americans who protested was that it was being built on ancient burial grounds. To be honest, that may be true, and I think we should have protected, historical sites and everything. But I went there, and when I was talking to the Native Americans, I was like, so what part of, this land is ancient burial grounds? Like, all of it. And I was like, all of it? And like, yeah. And I'm like, that's a lot of land, dude. Do you actually have a designated location, or are you just saying that so that literally like 10,000 acres or whatever can't be constructed on? It doesn't sound right. It sounds weird. Not that I'm a fan of massive corporations building industrial pipelines or anything like that. I'm just saying, didn't sound like a legitimate argument. It sounded just like, oh, you can't build there. That's a burial ground. Oh, that's a burial ground too. So is that. It sounded like they just didn't want the pipeline. To be honest, some people actually were upset that they didn't get proper compensation. But a lot of the people who were there, I would say the overwhelming majority, were environmental activists because the pipeline has leaked a lot. I think we were talking about on the show, on the IRL podcast the other night, it was like 29 times. So I get it. Take a look at this from the AOPL. They lament lost jobs on Biden's first day. Quote, killing 10,000 jobs and taking $2.2 billion in payroll out of workers' pockets is not what Americans need or want right now. That's right. It also, they don't mention Canada. Apparently 2,000 jobs in Canada were just removed, and now there's apparently some lawsuits in Canada saying the U.S. is violating a contract. I'm not going to sit here and defend the Keystone Pipeline. Sorry. I know a lot of people are in favor of it because it's good industry. This is surprising, but the pipeline is actually a cleaner way to transport petroleum, of which our economy and our infrastructure is heavily dependent upon. I'd love to see us get away from it. I'd love to see a push towards renewable energies, and we got to figure that whole part out. And the good argument I always say for people on the right is energy independence and a higher return on energy investment will make us substantially more competitive with countries like China, and our economy will grow substantially faster with energy independence. We've accomplished this under Trump with fossil fuels. We need to make sure that we're working on renewables, be it nuclear energy or otherwise, because oil exploration is difficult. And what's happening is the harder it becomes to find oil, the lower return on energy investment you get. So look at it this way. If we have to find oil, and for every $1 we put in, we get $5 out, eventually it becomes harder to find oil. And then we're putting in $3 to get $5 out. Do you see how that works? It's not the perfect way to explain it, but basically it becomes harder and harder. It's a diminishing return. If now we take the opportunity with energy independence to focus on renewables, we can appease the environmentalists, and we can also find a way to develop energy that we have a static return on energy investment. So basically, if it costs $3 to get $5 out of, say, wind or solar, we guarantee it will always be the case. For the time being, I don't know if it actually reaches that point, because I think it's actually like for every $10, we get $5 out, and it doesn't necessarily work, but we need the technological development. For the time being, I think Joe Biden's virtue signaling destruction of Keystone Pipeline is meaningless because there's like dozens and dozens of pipelines all over the country. So, well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Joe Biden signed these executive orders probably for a media play, but already journalists are upset because the press secretary isn't answering questions. Oh, no. Yeah, well, what did you expect? I liked one journalist was like, is he going to keep the color scheme on the Air Force One plane? Yes, asking the important questions. Can we at least get some kind of like right-wing version of Jim Acosta just yell at Joe Biden for 4 years? I'm kidding, by the way. Look, it's going to be an interesting next several years. We'll see what happens. Was it Quartz already wrote an article saying what happens if Joe Biden dies? Because Joe Biden is 14 years older than the average life expectancy for a person born in 1942. It's crazy. So, look, I'll leave it there. Before I go, though, make sure you become a member over at timcast.com. We've got a really great segment up where Ian and I are screaming. So Ian, me, Luke, and Jack, it's a 20-minute segment. It's for members only. Check it out because we're yelling about whether or not Trump is truly corrupt. Do you think Trump is corrupt? Do you think he's not corrupt? You're going to want to hear this argument because it gets hot. Luke is like foreign policy and Ian is like nepotism, and Jack and I kind of agree. Trump's not perfect. He's got moral character, not so good. But come on, comparing him to Biden, you're going to want to see this one. So go to timcast.com, become a member, and stick around. Next segment will be coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel, and I will see you all then.